Okay, here we go. We are happy to be here and talking about yet another recruiting topic. This time we're talking about scouting services. So I'm Vince Hordeman, Clint Hordeman. We're Select Basketball, and we've been doing a lot of recruiting videos. And this week we're going to talk about scouting services versus recruiting services. Last week we talked about recruiting services. We talked about what those are. This week we're going to go into scouting services, how they differ, how they work, and what these guys are doing, how colleges are using them, and then we're also going to dive into how players can get themselves on one of these reports and in front of more college coaches. So before we jump in on that, let's just kind of review what these different services are, just so we're all on the same page.
Okay.
And stay around as we get towards the end. We are going to talk about specifically how players can get themselves on. So recruiting services, basically these are the services that players can pay for to get onto the service, and that service then puts their information in front of as many college coaches as they can. College coaches don't pay for them. They can receive them and use them however they want. Scouting services, which we will talk about today, these are really where the evaluations and the talent comes into play. Coaches pay to be a part of these services, generally speaking, and they will receive reports. It builds on their network, and we're going to go into details on that. And then quickly, we also should probably mention what I call ranking services, which would be your ESPN, Rivals, 24/7, and these are the services that are really catered more towards fans. And the fans may pay a subscription to view them, and they are going to target really the Big Five conferences with the big names and those high major players, 4-star, 5-star players, and cater, like I said, more to the fan base, less to the players and the coaches. So having said that, if you have questions, please post them in the comments. We will be going through this and reading your comments, answering questions as we go through. If you have any, we'd love to do it. We'd love to get you involved in this conversation. So I'm going to turn it over now to Clint and just start with the question of how does a scouting service work?
Essentially, how it works is that throughout the country, there's various scouts that that's their sole job. They're out there and they need content. They're going to high school tournaments, AU tournaments, camps, trying to find and report on different players from all different levels. Often they're regional. There's not a lot that are based throughout the whole country, but these are people that traditionally have a lot of experience. They've been doing it. Maybe they had some experience doing some coaching at the college level and kind of worked their way into being a resource for various colleges in that area, and then basically said, listen, there's a way to monetize this, and that is my opinions are worth something. People are constantly inquiring, for these resources from me. I can put out a report, give my evaluation of these players, and use it as a resource for these colleges to reference and hunt down players. And we'll go into even more what the college coaches are using them for, but essentially that's what the service is. It is a service there to be another resource for college coaches to find players and network, to be honest with you.
Okay, when you say network, what do you mean by that?
Just the coaching world is a very small fraternity, and these scouts are considered part of that fraternity. It's just a big network. So the more people that you know, the more connectors that you know. These scouts, they are traveling week to week, day to day, watching players play. They meet all the AAU coaches. They know all the high school coaches. They know the regional kind of heavy hitters, people that are helping these kids. And so that's where that network comes in. If you're a part of this scouting service and have a relationship there, you see a player play and it may go into that scouting report, but if you're a part of that network, you might get a little text message early, hey, saw this kid play at a jamboree over in Salt Lake. He's a really good player. You might want to reach out to him now. I'm going to put him in my report in 2 weeks, but because of our relationship and the way his style of play, I'm going to give you the jump on this, and it's a way that, being a part of that network, again, is such a huge thing, anything, but especially in the scouting, recruiting, college ranks.
And these are experts usually in a specific area. So that could be what, usually a state, would it be city, regional, or does it depend?
It kind of depends, but most of them, like for instance, I know a couple scouts that are working the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, Salt Lake, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, all those, Arizona. There's so many kids to evaluate. You can't have a beat on all of them. And a lot of services I found also, they not only do high school, but they do junior college. So that just makes their report that much more valuable. So again, if you're thinking about the millions and millions of players across the country, it's hard to, evaluate all those players and know all the different, nooks and crannies. Because obviously, there's certain players that everybody knows, right? Those high major kids that everybody, that's not necessarily what you're paying the service for. You're paying the service to find the kid maybe that plays on an AU team and maybe isn't on a bigger school or whatever, but has grown 4 inches or maybe hasn't been seen as much. That's part of the whole scouting, the scouting service and what they're trying to find, and that's what their niche is trying to find those guys. And you can't know what rocks to turn over in every state across the country. So
yeah, okay. So they specialize, which I mean, you find that in almost every industry.
No question.
You're going to specialize and be special in whatever you're doing. So specifically, the coaches pay to be a part of this, and I imagine just like on the recruiting services, there are ranges of different prices. Give an idea of how much, maybe not how much, but how they would differentiate one price point from another.
Well, it's just like anything else. The value is perceived, right? Whatever you're using it for. I mean, again, some people, I talked to a lot of different coaches throughout the last week, and some of them are part of 10 different scouting services. Some are part of 4 or 5, and some are just like, listen, I got this 1 or 2 scouting services that I like, and that's what I'm running with. Again, it comes down to the resources that your school may have. If you're a high major D1, dropping a couple grand on these services or $5,000 on these services is not a big deal. If you're a smaller NEI school, most services charge less for the smaller schools, like a D3 NEI. Theirs may spend less than a Division I school, but they may only have a small school may only have 1 or 2, but they're a trusted source, so they're using the ones that they can relate to, the ones they understand. Everybody has a different way of writing. That's one of the things I found. And so you have to understand, okay, how do they grade out? Does this person grade out really difficult? Are they saying the same thing about every kid, right? And they're all quick. Well, then you got to take it with a grain of salt. But you got to learn how to get this information. And I think one of the other things is when they're dissecting these and looking through all the names and kind of filtering the ones that are worth it, that are working in their level, right? If you're a Division II school, I mean, the 5-star guys are guys that are going to go to University of Washington or UCLA. I mean, you don't need to make your spreadsheet, right? But the one thing that a couple of these services provide, if they have email addresses, phone numbers, AAU phone numbers, some of them have GPAs, things like that. The more details that they can have, the more valuable they are, right? If it's just a name and the high school, it's got value, but maybe a little ranking or something that's got value, but now you've got a lot more research you've got to put in to find more information on that kid. Whereas if it's very detailed, it's got more value, and so you can charge more.
And the big difference here, I guess, is between the recruiting service and a scouting service is that the recruiting service anybody can pay to be a part of, but here the scouting service, you are paying for that scout's opinion, whom probably doesn't have a direct relationship with the player, really probably doesn't even care whether the player is any good or not. What they care about is I have to build trust, I have to put forth accurate information, otherwise people aren't going to buy my report from me.
No question. A recruiting service, the players are paying. Scouting service, the coaches are paying, right? And so the scout, they need to, if they want to continue to be a scout, they have to provide, very quality evaluations that are honest, that aren't going to make anybody go, wow, okay, this kid, they graded this kid as a low major Division I. Well, if that kid is way higher, way lower, then you're going to question that evaluation moving forward. So they've got to be very, they can't have any loyalties to one group or one party. They got to be able to evaluate, with a clear mind and not show any biases one direction or another.
Coaches are paying for this. They're getting lists of players, maybe some rankings, but at least an evaluation. How are they using these lists to go beyond what the list provide? Because anybody can. I mean, you can get a list and it can say he is this, but what do they do at that point when they get the report?
Well, there's a couple things. One, just kind of to build on what you just said, is what are they using it for? Like I was saying, some of them have high school, but some of them have high school and junior college, so that adds value. Some of these, they also, like if there's a tournament or some sort of event going on put on by that scout, which we'll get into here probably a little bit more later, it also can give you a huge discount. So if you're part of their service, I'm paying, for their evaluations, I can get in for a less price at an event that they, a camp or an event they're putting in down the road. Whereas one person that's not part of, buying that package, that evaluation service, may have to pay $250 to get in. Oh, you're part of my service. You paid for that service. It's only $50 for you to get into this for the weekend. And how they can use them. There were several different. I heard a lot of different ways that they were being used. One is just as simply a cross reference. I saw the kid play. I only got to watch him play for one game. Oh, his name's on this scouting service. Oh, they're saying the same things that I am. So to cross reference. Okay. One is just straight up, I don't know who the kid is. I'm going to be going to the Bigfoot tournament in Vegas next weekend. And here's 10 more names. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in that gym that I can watch out for, that this trusted scout said, hey, check them out. So I'm going to stick around and watch those games. Again, the first thing they'll always do, though, I should have said this first, though, is they're just going to take those and go, okay, again, what level am I? And so let me pick out and create a spreadsheet of the ones that have value for me, that aren't going to be a waste of my time one way or the other. Again, if you're a high major Division I and they're saying that this is a really great Division II NAIA player, I mean, you're just filtering those out so that you can. A lot of them are assistant coaches that are using these, and they're trying to provide their head coach with as much information so that they can figure out a game plan, for, again, you're cross-referencing, you're going to watch, you're starting the recruiting process, whatever.
Okay. So I guess the question probably people want to know the most is, if I'm a player, how do I get on a report? How do I get into this service? If I can't pay to be on it, what do I need to do to be evaluated and possibly get in front of these college coaches?
Well, I'll start with just saying the fact that if you're from a smaller area, it is more difficult. Okay, so if you're in Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, there's not a lot of scouts or any scouts really that are in that region. So for you guys, it's really important that you can go to either one of their camps being held by a national scout or playing on a really high quality AAU team that's going to play at these events as well. They host events. And then they also need content. So you can't expect a scout to come to you. You're going to have to go to them, whether that's, again, joining an AAU team and going to an event that they're at, going to an event that they're hosting, or whatever. But you're going to have to go to them. They also attend high school tournaments. But when I say high school tournaments, I mean like the Les Schwab Invitational in Portland, or something being hosted in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, in the region that we most work with for our AU program, those high schools aren't going to those events. So it comes back to AAU, travel ball in the spring and summer. So those are the most proactive ways to do it. The reality is if they're there, then of course, bottom line is you have to perform, right?
Sure.
So you get there, it's lined out. You're going up against a great team out of wherever. So you've got great competition that you're playing against. If you perform, then you're going to get evaluated. They're going to put you on their service. If not, then hopefully you get another opportunity later to show them a better performance. But I think the reality is that you got to figure out where they're at, and then you've got to try and get yourself there. That's the most proactive way of doing this.
Okay. So again, if you've got questions, please throw them in the comments, and we'll move on to those. So. You got to be a good enough player to make the list.
No question.
First of all, but they do. It's not just the high majors. I mean,
no.
Community colleges are looking for guys. They need and girls. They need players to fill their roster. They just need to know, can you play? So there are services that cover that level.
No question. As a scout, their job is obviously to provide content so that as many coaches will buy that, right? So if you're watching small college players, and you've got a bigger, broader net that you're casting, right? Well, there's more colleges that are going to write you a check to buy your service. So yes, absolutely. Small colleges, junior colleges. I mean, they're all as long as they have the resources, they're going to pay to get as many quality names as they possibly can from a reliable source.
Okay, so if I'm a high school player, is there a list of these places I can go? How do I get in front of one of these services that can help me out?
That's a great question. I think that this may be the first time you brought it up. This is just a great question, but Google search. Honestly, looking out there at reports, there's a lot out there as far as there's a lot of content. I know that you were doing some searches. Did you find anything in that realm also?
Well, one place obviously that we take our teams to are generally NCAA certified events.
Yeah.
So most of the time, a service is going to be there to cover them. If you play for a really good AAU program, like a known program, when you go to these events, they may seek you out. So
Yeah.
if you're on one of those teams, you can be seen. The NCAA, now things are a little different right now with how the recruiting and COVID and everything has changed everything. But under normal circumstances, the NCAA will usually publish a list of certified events, and that's a good place to check as well. So not just in your area, but if you needed to look for more resources, they do have camps on there as well.
Yeah.
So, and then I think the other thing is to go to the service's website and see what events they're hosting. And it would be similar to a university or a college that you wanted to attend that might be hosting an elite camp.
Yep.
And you want to go and play in front of them. But in this case, you go to that event, unlike the university or college, your information can get out to more than just one place. But now you still got to go in there and perform. It doesn't guarantee anything, and that's the thing that you got to love, but might make you a little weary is you can't buy your way onto these lists. You actually have to perform, but that's the reason why colleges rely on them is because they can trust them. So I think those are a few of the things you can do. And some of that's out of your control. I mean, you can't control where your high school plays. You can't control where your AAU team plays. You have to really rely on them making their best judgments as they go into it.
Yeah, and I think that as an AAU guy, you've got to rely on those the AAU coaches and programs and their directors on where to go to give you the best opportunity. And that's where experience comes in. That's where asking a lot of questions comes in. I mean, again, I could tell you a number of different locations that you could go for that, but like you said, there's almost too many to list.
Yeah.
But we've got 20 years of experience under our belt. I think that's one of the biggest things, though, is trying to make sure that you are being smart where you go and understand the more quality players that are around, the better opportunity you're going to have having a scout there and be able to evaluate you.
Mm-hmm.
I also think another piece of that is you said it multiple times, the bigger the name brand of your AAU team, the better courts you get put on, ending up in the middle of nowhere in Pool Triple J, it's really hard for a scout to hunt that location down. And so the closer you can sniff that main court, the better. So again, it comes down, we've talked, over and over about being proactive and going to them. Again, AAU basketball for kind of smaller market areas is going to be your best bet when it comes to, playing in front of one of these scouts with the chance to get evaluated.
And it doesn't, if you're not on one of these lists, it doesn't mean you're not going to get recruited. You might be hidden under a rock somewhere, but you might be able to still break out, and you don't have to be on the list. We don't want to make this sound like you have to be on a scouting services radar in order to get recruited. It just helps to have more, just like playing in front of a college coach is good and having a good performance in front of them. It's one piece of the puzzle that you have to try to do all of them, but just because you don't have it doesn't mean you can't get recruited.
No, we've had literally hundreds of players that have played college basketball on scholarship that were never on a scouting service. And we've had some that are. It's just again, we go back to as a resource, it is something that if you could make it happen, it really does. It really can jumpstart or, increase recruitment and opportunities. So definitely a field that is worth covering, and we get a ton of questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of people that are asking about showcase camps. I get a lot of parents that are asking about this high academic camp or whatever, and I always say it's never a bad idea. The more exposure you can get, the better. As long as you're playing in a reputable, well-run situation. Those are opportunities. As long as you perform, which we've said 100 times.
And that's the bottom line is coaches get paid to win games, and they win games. You need players, and there's just no getting around that one. So,
No question.
okay, so that pretty much wraps up the overview of scouting services. Hopefully that was helpful to you. If you have other topics on recruiting that you want to hear about, Clint and I have had 20 years of experience in this world, and we would love to help you out any way that we can. If you check out the description of this video, you're going to find a link in there to our free recruiting ebook. Just click on it. You can sign up. It'll be sent over to you, and you can read more about the recruiting process, why some players are getting seriously recruited and others get passed over. Scouting services are a part of that, along with several other things that are covered in that ebook. So with that, appreciate your time. Thank you, Clint, for all your information, and we look forward to bringing you another one here soon. Let us know what you'd like to hear about, and we'll be happy to do it. Thanks.